My parents told me, since you're divorced, you should be your sister's surrogate. She deserves a family. I froze and said, that's my body, not yours. My mom shouted, we gave you life, you owe this. Then they tried convincing my doctor without me. I knew something was off the moment my mom called me. Not a text, not a quick, hey, call me when you get a chance, but a full, deliberate phone call. That alone was strange. My mother was the kind of woman who believed phone calls were only for emergencies or passive-aggressive guilt trips, and knowing her, it was more likely to be the latter. I was in my car, sitting in the driveway of my apartment in San Diego, sipping a lukewarm coffee I'd forgotten about when her name flashed on my screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, letting it go to voicemail. But I made the mistake of answering. Anna, sweetheart, she said, her voice smooth, too smooth. Are you busy? Your father and I were thinking. It's been a while since we had a nice family dinner. How about tomorrow night? There was no warmth in her tone, just the kind of calculated casualness that meant she wanted something. I could feel the tension curling in my stomach already, but I swallowed it down. Tomorrow was a Tuesday. We never had family dinners on Tuesdays. What's the occasion? I asked, shifting in my seat. Do we need an occasion to want to see our daughter? She said lightly, but I could hear the tightness beneath her words. I knew her too well. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Yeah, all right, perfect, she said, and I could hear the approval in her voice, like I'd just passed some sort of test. Be here at 6. Don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. Something about this wasn't right. The way she asked, the way she didn't even give me a chance to say no. It wasn't that I didn't love my family. I did in my own complicated way. But I also knew them. I knew when they were up to something. And this felt like something. When I arrived at my parents' house the next evening, that feeling only grew stronger. Everything looked the same. Perfectly trimmed hedges, the faint scent of my mother's rose bushes drifting through the air, the porch light already on even though the sun was still up, but the air felt charged, like the walls themselves were holding in a secret. Inside, the dining table was already set. My mom had gone all out, cloth napkins, the good china she usually only brought out on holidays. My dad was at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone, his expression unreadable. And then there was my sister, Allison. She was already seated, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the table. She looked like she had been sitting there for a while. I hesitated in the doorway. Okay, what's going on? My mom emerged from the kitchen, smiling too widely, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Sit down, honey. Let's eat first. I wasn't hungry anymore, but I sat. I went through the motions, putting food on my plate, nodding along to whatever small talk my parents were forcing. But my sister still wasn't saying much, and my mom kept looking at my dad like she was waiting for him to say something. I barely took a few bites before I couldn't take it anymore. All right, I said, setting my fork down. Just tell me, what's this about? My mom sighed, like she'd been hoping I wouldn't push. But she knew me better than that. She folded her hands on the table, her nails clicking against each other. Your sister and Jacob have been trying for a baby. I blinked. That wasn't news. I knew about the years of failed IVF attempts, the miscarriages, the quiet devastation she never spoke about. I had been there, watching her grieve, watching her struggle with something that seemed so cruelly out of reach. I know, I said slowly. My mom took a breath. And we were thinking, since you're divorced now, and you don't have any children of your own, maybe you could help her. Something about the way she said it made my stomach drop. Help her, I repeated. Allison shifted in her chair, finally looking up. Her face was tight, her eyes red-rimmed. My mom pressed forward, her voice calm but firm. You could carry the baby for her. Be the surrogate. The words hit me like a slap. I actually laughed. An incredulous, sharp sound. What? It makes sense, she said smoothly, like she had rehearsed this. You're young, healthy. You've always wanted kids, but now that Matt is out of the picture, I felt my face heat. So because I got divorced, you think my uterus is up for grabs? Allison flinched. My dad, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Think about it, Anna. You be giving your sister a family. You don't have any major responsibilities tying you down right now. Tie me down. Like the only thing keeping me from giving them what they wanted was the lack of a husband. I stared at them, at my mother's unwavering expression, my father's calculated calm, my sister's quiet, desperate hope. And I realized this wasn't a request. It was an expectation. I pushed back my chair, my heart hammering in my chest. I can't believe this. My mom's voice sharpened. We gave you life, Anna. You owe this to your family. I actually felt my breath catch. I owe them. I wanted to scream, wanted to shake them, make them understand how completely and utterly insane this was. But instead, I just exhaled, forcing my voice to stay steady. No, I said. I don't. I grabbed my bag and walked out. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But then, a week later, my doctor's office called. Hi, Ms. Parker, the receptionist said. We received a request from your family regarding a surrogate evaluation. We wanted to confirm before proceeding. I almost dropped my phone. I gripped the steering wheel of my car so tightly my knuckles turned white. I what? No, I didn't authorize that. There was a pause on the other end. Oh, we were under the impression. No, I said sharply. Do not proceed with anything. I need to make a call. I hung up and immediately dialed my mother. She answered on the second ring. Sweetheart, before you say anything, you went behind my back to my doctor? My voice was shaking. Do you have any idea how disgusting that is? She sighed. We thought if you had all the information, you'd come around. I let out a hollow, bitter laugh. Come around. Your sister deserves a family, my dad chimed in, his voice cool. And you're in a position to help. You're being selfish. Selfish. I pressed my fingers to my temple, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I should have known. Should have seen it coming. But even now, standing in the middle of the parking lot, the late afternoon sun burning into my skin, I realized something. They were never going to see me as a person. Just a means to an end. I stood there for a long time after the call ended, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. The world around me blurred. Voices of people walking past faded into a dull hum. They had gone behind my back. They had contacted my doctor, without my consent, without even telling me. My own parents. I felt sick. I climbed in my car, slamming the door shut. My breathing was uneven, my hands shaking. I replayed the conversation over and over, each word cutting deeper than the last. You owe this to your family. You're being selfish. Your sister deserves a family. I squeezed my eyes shut, resting my forehead against the steering wheel. Selfish. That word rattled in my skull like a hammer against glass. It wasn't the first time I had heard it from them. Not the first time my parents had framed my choices as disappointments. I had been selfish when I left Matt. Selfish when I moved out of state for college instead of staying close to home. Selfish when I chose a career over settling down in my 20s. And now, selfish because I wasn't willing to give up my body for them. A sharp knock on my window jolted me. I looked up, heart hammering. It was Allison. I hesitated, staring at her through the glass. She looked anxious, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. I could have ignored her, could have driven away, but I didn't. With a heavy sigh, I unlocked the door. She slid into the passenger seat, shutting the door carefully, like she was afraid too much force would set me off. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Then, quietly, she said, I didn't know they were going to call your doctor. I scoffed. You really expect me to believe that? She winced. I knew they were going to talk to you again about it, but I didn't think they'd actually go that far. I turned to look at her, really look at her. She had always been the golden child, the responsible one, the one who did everything right. She had married young, settled into a predictable suburban life with Jacob, followed the script our parents had always wanted. And now, she was here, asking me to fix what life hadn't given her. I don't know what you want me to say, Allison, I muttered. She shifted in her seat. I wanted to talk. Without them. I exhaled sharply, leaning back against the headrest. Fine, talk. She hesitated, wringing her hands in her lap. Then, in a small voice, she said, I know you think I'm asking too much. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Do you? She swallowed, looking down. I do. But Anna, you have to understand what it's like. I've wanted this for so long. We've tried everything. IVF, surrogacy agencies, adoption. It's all dead ends. It's like the universe just won't let me have a baby. Her voice cracked on the last word. And for a moment, I saw something raw beneath all of it. Pain. Desperation. I knew she wasn't faking it. This wasn't manipulation, at least not entirely. She was truly, deeply broken over this. But that didn't change the fact that she was asking me to bear the weight of that pain. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Allison, I get it. I really do. But this what you're asking, it's not simple. It's not just carrying a baby. It's my entire body. My life. And you and Mom and Dad are acting like I owe it to you. She flinched at that. I'm not saying you owe me, she said, but even as she said it, there was hesitation in her voice. I turned to her, my voice quieter now. Aren't you? She didn't answer. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she sighed, shoulders slumping. I just thought, if anyone would understand, it would be you. I stared out the windshield, gripping the steering wheel. That was the problem. I did understand. That's what made it worse. But understanding didn't mean sacrificing myself. She reached for the door handle. I won't bring it up again, she said, voice tight. I didn't believe her. She got out, shutting the door behind her, and walked away without looking back. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at nothing, my heart heavy in my chest. I knew this wasn't over. I stayed in the car long after Allison left, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. My mind was running in circles, replaying the conversation over and over. They weren't going to stop. I could feel it in my bones, the way my mother's voice had sharpened on the phone, the way my father had spoken like this was just a matter of convincing me, not respecting my choice. And Allison, she had left, but not in defeat. No, there was something else in her posture, something unresolved. I exhaled, forcing myself to focus on something, anything else. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, heading home. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my mother and a single text from my father. We need to talk. Call us back. I stared at it for a long time before tossing my phone on the nightstand. No, I wasn't doing this. Not today. I got up, went through the motions of making coffee, turned on the news just for background noise, anything to drown out the weight pressing against my ribs. But even as I tried to distract myself, the dread sat heavy in my stomach. By noon, I had 6 more missed calls and 2 texts from Allison. Mom is really upset. Just call her back. Please don't let this ruin everything. Ruin everything. As if I was the one creating the problem. I threw my phone on the couch and left it there, determined not to look at it for the rest of the day. I made it 2 days before they showed up at my door. It was a Saturday, late morning, and I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard a knock. A sharp, deliberate sound. I froze. They wouldn't. Another knock. Crap. I wrapped my towel around myself and tiptoed to the window, peeking through the blinds. My mother's car was in the driveway. For a moment, I considered just not answering. Let them knock. Let them get frustrated and leave. But something told me they wouldn't. They'd wait. They'd make a scene if they had to. With a heavy sigh, I pulled on some clothes, tied my damp hair into a loose bun, and opened the door. There they were. My mother, arms crossed, eyes sharp. My father, standing a step behind her, silent but firm. And Allison, off to the side, her expression unreadable. I leaned against the doorframe, blocking the entrance. What are you doing here? We needed to talk face to face, my mother said, her tone clipped. You've been avoiding us. I haven't been avoiding you, I said flatly. I've been ignoring you. She exhaled sharply, like I was a misbehaving child. Anna, this is ridiculous. You're acting like we asked you to donate a kidney. I blinked. Are you actually comparing growing a whole human inside me to a kidney? Don't be dramatic, she snapped. We're just asking you to help your sister. She would do the same for you. I turned to Allison. Would you? She hesitated, just for a second. And that was enough. I huffed out a laugh, shaking my head. That's what I thought. Allison's face flushed. That's not fair, no. I cut in, looking at all of them now. You know what's not fair? That you're all standing here. Acting like this is my responsibility. Like my body is some backup plan, just because things didn't work out the way you wanted. Anna, my father said, his voice even. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I stared at him. Harder for who? He didn't answer. For a long moment, we stood there in silence, tension thick in the air. Finally, my mother exhaled, pressing a hand to her forehead. Anna, she said, her voice softer now, like she was trying a different approach. Just think about what you're saying. About what you're giving up. You don't even have a family of your own? I laughed. Actually, I laughed. Oh my God, there it is. My mother's eyes narrowed. Where is it? The real reason you think this is fine, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Because I got divorced. Because I don't have a husband. Because I don't have kids. So in your mind, that means I have nothing going on. That means I should be willing to do this. Because what else am I doing with my life, right? Nobody spoke. But their silence was not enough. I swallowed down the lump in my throat, stepping back into the house, my hand tightening on the doorknob. You need to leave. Allison took a step forward. Anna, please, get out. She flinched, but she didn't move. It was my father who finally spoke. You're going to regret this. A chill ran down my spine. Not because I believed him, but because it was a THR. A quiet, unspoken warning that this wasn't over. I met his gaze, steady and unwavering. No, I said. I won't. Then, without another word, I shut the door in their faces and locked it. I stood there for a long time after locking the door, my fingers still gripping the knob. My pulse pounded in my ears, my breath uneven. I expected them to knock again, to shout through the door, to make some last desperate attempt to get me to open up. But they didn't. I listened as the footsteps shuffled away, as the sound of my mother's car door slammed shut. Then the ignition. Then the slow roll of tires against pavement. Then silence. I exhaled shakily, pressing my forehead against the cool wood of the door. They were gone. For now. But I knew this wasn't the end of it. Not even close. For the next few days, I tried to go about my life as usual. I went to work, ran errands, tried to pretend like things were normal. But the silence from my family wasn't comforting. It was ominous. No texts. No calls. Not even a passive-aggressive email from my mother, which was practically unheard of. They were planning something. I could feel it. And then, on Thursday, I found out exactly what it was. I was in the break room at work, stirring sugar into my coffee, when my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin, Julia. Hey, just a heads up. Your mom's been talking. A lot. I frowned, my stomach tightening. I hadn't spoken to Julia in weeks. Talking about what? I texted back. The response came almost instantly. About you. About the surrogacy thing. She's telling people you refuse to help your sister have a family, and that you've been cruel to her. She's making it sound really bad, Anna. I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. Who has she told? Everyone. I swallowed hard. Everyone meant the entire family. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins. Even the ones I only saw at weddings and funerals. I could already picture it. My mother calling up my aunts, dropping the story into casual conversation, playing the devastated mother whose selfish daughter had refused to help her poor, heartbroken sister. And they would believe her. Of course they would. I set my coffee down with a little too much force, my fingers trembling. A second text came through. I just thought you should know. I don't believe her, by the way, but others do. I clenched my jaw, typing back a quick thanks for telling me, before shoving my phone into my pocket. I needed to get out of here. I left my coffee on the counter and walked straight to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall. My own mother, smearing my name through the family, twisting the story so that I was the villain. I pressed my palms against my face, trying to breathe through the wave of frustration and hurt crashing over me. I knew she was upset. I knew she wanted me to say yes. But this was a new level of betrayal, and I had no idea how far she was willing to take it. By the time I got home that evening, the text had started. First, from Aunt Teresa. I can't believe you do this to your own sister. Family's everything, Anna. Then, from Uncle Ray. I heard about the situation. I hope you reconsider before it's too late. You don't want to live with regret. And then, one after another. Cousins. Family friends. Even an old neighbor from when we were kids, telling me how disappointed they were. Each message made my stomach turn. Each word felt like a weight pressing heavier and heavier on my chest. I ignored them all. But then, an email. From my mother. I hesitated before opening it, already bracing myself. Subject. A family discussion, Anna. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. We raised you better than this. We are a family, and family helps each other. I cannot understand how you could be so cold to your own sister, who has done nothing but love and support you. Allison is devastated. She cries every day. Do you even care? Do you have any idea how much pain you are causing her? You are breaking this family apart, and for what? Just to be spiteful? Just to prove a point? This is not how family works. You should be ashamed of yourself. I hope you take some time to reflect on your choices before you make a mistake you can't take back. Mom, I read it twice, then a third time, and the more I read it, the colder I felt, because there was no love in those words, no attempt to understand me, to respect my feelings, just guilt, manipulation, a demand wrapped in a lecture. I closed the email, my hands trembling, and I realized something. This wasn't just about surrogacy anymore. This was about control, and they weren't going to stop. I sat there for a long time after reading my mother's email, the anger building inside me like a slow-burning fire. They wanted to control me. They wanted me to submit, to feel guilty, to give in. And worse, they were trying to make me the villain in all of this. No, I wasn't going to let them win. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. The first step was simple. I sent my doctor a formal notice stating that under no circumstances was my family to discuss any medical procedures on my behalf. I followed it up with an official legal letter, just in case my mother thought she could sweet talk or pressure her way past them. Then, I drafted an email back to my mother. Short, to the point. Mom, I see what you're doing, and it stops now. You are actively trying to manipulate and smear me to our family, and I will not tolerate it. Since you've decided to spread lies about me, let me make one thing very clear. I am done. I will not be your puppet, and I will not let you guilt me into making a choice that affects my body and my life. If you continue to harass me, I will take legal action. This is your one warning. Anna. I hit send and blocked her number. Then I did the same for my father. Then for Allison. Then for every relative who had sent me messages, shaming me for my decision. Let them talk. Let them gossip. I didn't care anymore. The backlash was immediate. The very next day, Julia called me, her voice urgent. Anna, I don't know what you did, but your mom is losing it. Let me guess, I said, stretching out on my couch, sipping a cup of tea. She's playing the victim? Oh, Harker, Julia said. She's telling everyone that you THR-teen her, that you're tearing the family apart. I snorted. Good. Let her. Julia hesitated. You don't sound upset. Because I'm not. I said simply. I'm done playing her game. Julia sighed. Well, just so you know, not everyone is buying it. People are starting to realize she's twisting the truth. That was interesting. Really? Oh yeah, Julia said. She went on this whole rant to Aunt Teresa about how you owe her because she gave you life, and Teresa apparently told her she sounded insane. I nearly dropped my tea. Aunt Teresa said that? Yep. And Uncle Ray actually told her that pressuring someone into pregnancy is disgusting. I let out a surprised laugh. Wow, didn't see that coming. Julia hummed. So yeah, she's not getting quite the reaction she wanted. Don't get me wrong, there are still some relatives taking her side. But a lot of people are starting to realize she's just pissed she didn't get her way. I smiled to myself. Good, let her unravel. Let her suffer in the mess she made. I wasn't cleaning it up for her. The final blow came 2 weeks later. I was at work when I got an email from a reporter. Subject, inquiry regarding your family's surrogacy request. I frowned and clicked it open. Hi, Anna. I'm a journalist covering ethical dilemmas in family dynamics, and I was recently contacted by someone regarding a story about family pressure and surrogacy. Your name was mentioned, and I wanted to reach out to hear your side of things. If you're open to it, I'd love to set up a time to chat. I blinked at the screen, my heart pounding. This was it. This was my mother's last desperate move. She had tried to guilt me, tried to turn the family against me, and now, when that hadn't worked, she had gone to the media. But the fact that the reporter was reaching out to me directly meant one thing. Mom had told a story so outrageous that even a journalist wanted to fact-check it. I smirked. I replied. 2 days later, a new article went viral. The headline? Daughter refuses to be family's breeding machine. Parents try to force doctor's hand. The article obliterated my parents' reputation. It detailed how they had tried to coerce me into surrogacy, how they had contacted my doctor behind my back, how they had rallied the family against me in a manipulative smear campaign. And the best part? Julia had come forward, confirming everything. A few of my other cousins did too, anonymously. Even some relatives who had originally sided with my parents started backtracking. Suddenly, they were the ones being harsh said online. They were the ones getting backlash. My mother called me from a different number. I let it go to voicemail. She left a single message, her voice trembling with rage. How could you do this to us? I smiled. How could I do this? I had simply told the truth. And now, for the first time, my mother had to face the consequences of her own actions. She had tried to ruin my reputation. Instead, she had destroyed her own, and I had never felt so free.